So, good afternoon, students. Previous class we have already discussed about the definition of eddy current. Okay, what is eddy current? So, how eddy current is produced when a bulk conductor is placed in a uniform magnetic field. So, the change in magnetic flux linked with the conductor changes. So, current is produced look like eddies or whirl loop. So, now the properties of eddy current. First, eddy currents are undesirable current. So undesirable, unavailable. Okay. Next, it produces large amount of heat. So next is, so how to minimize minimization of eddy current. So since it is an undesirable current, so it is unrequired. So how to minimize? So we don't ignore this, but it is minimized. So how to minimize? So this can be minimized. This can be minimized by the lamination of core of insulating materials जदि आम कौन करिया गोटे कंडक्टर रे इन्सुलेशन करिया किछि इन्सुलेशन करिया मींस लैमिनेशन करिया गोटे इन्सुलेशन मटेरियल रे सो दैट इज एडी करंट मिनिमाइज्ड नेक्स्ट application of eddy current. So our application could route. First application would be magnetic brakes. Okay, आम जो ट्रेन रे अच्छी मैग्नेटिक ब्रेक, सो मैग्नेटिक ब्रेक रोची कहीं ना करंट अपोज करियो. सो कम फोर्स रे कौन हो अति कम समय रे हमर ब्रेक टा रहियो, सो ट्रेन टा स्टॉप. ओके, नेक्स्ट एप्लीकेशन इंडक्शन कुरांस. इंडक्शन कुरांस कौन? So steel plant, in case of steel plant, so there is a requirement of high temperature, that is 1000 degrees Celsius, 2000 degrees Celsius. So here, so high temperature is produced in a small time, so eddy current is required. Then electromagnetic planting. So different electromagnetic production करिया को हमहु कोन दरकार एडी करंट दरकार. ओके, तो परीक्षा रे कोन पचारियो आर प्रॉपर्टीज दुई मार्क पचारियो 2 मार्क्स आर प्रॉपर्टी एडी करंट आर अनडिजायरेबल करंट, रिमाइंड इट अनडिजायरेबल करंट. नेक्स्ट लार्ज अमाउंट ऑफ हीट विथ ए स्मॉल टाइम, so it is most important. So current produces heating effect in case of conductor, but eddy current produces large amount of heat in a small time. So this is the 2 points. So 1 mark रे पचारि कोन, what is the 1 mark पचारि कोन? ना हाउ टू मिनिमाइज द एडी करंट. केमिति मिनिमाइजेशन करिया ना लैमिनेशन तार कोर जो अछि कोर पार्ट को लैमिनेशन करिया बाय द इंसुलेटिंग मटेरियल. ओके नेक्स्ट है तार एप्लीकेशन 2 मार्क्स पचार 2 मार्क्स कौन पचार मैग्नेटिक ब्रेक्स इंडक्शन करंट और इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक एटा प्लांटिंग लिखि पारे और डेम्पिंग भी लिखि पारे सो आगे थिला डिस्क्रिप्शन सो एबे ना सो दीटा तीनटा इंपोर्टेंट ओके so what do you mean by eddy current first definition how to create eddy current so this is the properties of eddy current this is the minimization of eddy current this is the application of eddy current okay so it is all about your eddy current and its application and its minimization and its production so now we will go to the next process self induction and mutual induction so you have already discussed about whenever there is a change in magnetic flux linked with the coil an EMF is induced this EMF is called induced EMF and the current is induced current but main aim is to change the magnetic flux linked with the coil so self meaning so self means itself or coil jodi nidar current nije change korchi induced EMF korchi so ta koya self induction but mutual induction kono dita coil ଅଛି primary coil ଗୋଟେ secondary coil ଗୋଟେ coil ଯଦି ଆମେ current change करिया so another coil jodi EMF produce hoji so ame ta koya mutual induction okay so we will discuss about self induction and mutual induction and calculate the coefficient of self induction and coefficient of mutual induction write down self induction so self induction self induction is nothing but it is a property it is the property of a coil it is the property of a coil by virtue of which it opposes a change in strength of current it opposes but tends to oppose it tends to oppose or it opposes a change in electric current or current strength by producing induced EMF itself by producing an induced EMF itself okay so remind it is the property it is nothing but it is the property by virtue of which it opposes or it tends to oppose you can also write it tends to oppose or it opposes it tends to oppose likhi pariyo or it opposes a change in current strength by producing an induced EMF itself so nije nijara kon kurchi EMF induce kari kon kurchi current ro change ta ko oppose kurchi so taku kaya self induction it is nothing but it is the property so self induction is also a property remind it so it is the property of a coil by virtue of which it tends to oppose or it opposes a change in current strength by producing an induced EMF so this is the important by itself so nije se nije by itself is called self induction write down it is the property of a coil by virtue of which it tends to oppose or it opposes a change in current strength by producing an induced EMF itself. So that is called self-induction. So the meaning of self is called itself. So itself. So let us draw the diagram. So this is a coil. So by changing the current itself, producing an induced EMF is called self-induction. Okay. A change in strength of current, a change in strength of current or current strength by itself through it by inducing an EMF itself. By producing an induced EMF itself. Okay. So now it is concluded that phi change in magnetic flux or magnetic flux is directly proportional to current. So change in current. So phi b means magnetic flux, I means current. So phi b is directly proportional to current. If number of turns of coil is n, so I can write n phi b is directly proportional to I. Okay. It is experimentally it is found that the flux associated with the coil, magnetic flux linked with the coil, is directly proportional to amount of current going through the coil. Or if I can take number of turns of the coil n, so n phi b is directly proportional to I. So n phi b is equal to some constant into I. Okay. So L is a proportionality constant. So L is a proportionality constant. L is a proportionality constant. L is a proportionality constant called coefficient of self induction or self inductance. Coefficient of self induction or self inductance. Okay. Karo L. So L is equal to क्या लगेगा? L is equal to n phi b by I. जेमती रेजिस्टेंस गोटे कांस्टेंट आसला, कैपेसिटेंस गोटे कांस्टेंट आसला. Similarly, it कोन आसला coefficient of self inductance L. L is equal to phi by I. Okay. क्लियर. तार यूनिट टेबल लिखा देखो. यूनिट कोफिशिएंट ऑफ सेल्फ इंडक्टेंस L कितना हो जाएगा? 5 0 के वेबर डिवाइड बाय करंट एम्पीयर. सो वेबर पर एम्पीयर होगी L रो SI यूनिट. क्लियर. नेक्स्ट दिबा नेक्स्ट कौन करिए देखो. तो तुम जानते हो अकॉर्डिंग टू फैराडेस लॉ, Faraday's law of EMI. कौन लिखी भी E is equal to E is equal to magnitude अला d phi by dt. Okay. Or if number of terms n, so I can write n d phi by dt. Okay. Or I can write dn phi by dt कागे the number of constant it can be replaced here हमें आपको इधर रिप्लेस करो ओके सो n phi by बदले केते मु पुट कर परिबे सो d by dt of n phi b कागे n phi by बदले लिखले d by dt of li so li since l is a constant so L is taken outside, so di by dt. Di by dt. Okay. Or negative sign means arrow direction. Always is negative, so minus L di by dt. Okay. So अभी कौन देखा देखो आउट कौन आसला E is equal to मैग्नीट्यूड जब लिखबी L into di by dt so L is equal केता आसला E by di by dt so di by dt माने कोन di by dt means rate of change of electric current rate of change of electric current okay di by dt टा कौन rate of change of electric current rate of change of electric current but rate of change of charge is called current here rate of change of electric current our definition कोन आसला ना L is equal to E divided by di by dt EMF produced per rate of change of electric current okay so जब मैं आरो डेफिनेशन देबी कोन देबी ना L is equal to E हम केतेले जेतले रेट ऑफ चेंज ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिक करंट केता हो यूनिट हो ना नाही द कोएफिशिएंट ऑफ सेल्फ इंडक्टेंस इज सेड टू बी L when the EMF is equal to EMF when the rate of change of electric current is 1 unit or 1 ampere by 1 second okay so another definition we will give here so let me erase first here di by dt is equal to rate of change of electric current so 1 henry next definition 1 henry is equal to 1 volt 1 henry is equal to 1 volt divided by 1 ampere by 1 second 1 ampere by 1 second okay or 1 henry is equal to 1 volt divided by 1 ampere by second okay so it is like 1 volt into second divided by 1 ampere is equal to 1 henry write down 1 henry is the unit of self coefficient of self inductance okay so the definition लिखिया 1 henry का definition कौन लिखिया if इधर देखो मैथमेटिकल लिखिए if di by dt is equal to कहते 1 unit means 1 ampere per 1 second then L is equal to कहते होची E होची ना नहीं the coefficient of self induction is said to be 1 henry if 1 volt of induced EMF is produced by changing the rate of current 1 ampere per second so that is called 1 henry okay that is called 1 henry so कौन लिखियो when an induced EMF of 1 volt is produced by changing the rate of change of current 1 ampere per second is called 1 henry it is 1 henry definition so 1 henry कार unit ना इसका unit of करो coefficient of self inductance but आउट टाइम कौन पढ़ले देखो L definition आउट कौन पढ़ले L is equal to n phi b by I Weber per ampere এটা ଗୋଟେ পড়লে আমি নরমাল ডেফিনেশন बट आम फारेडेस लॉ रू कोन पाले फारेडेस लॉ रू L is equal to E divided by di by dt. So di by dt मान कोन rate of change of current, remind it, rate of change of current. So EMF divided by rate of change of current means 1 Henry, the self in coefficient of self inductance. एटा कोन ना coefficient of self inductance. बोलले एटा coefficient of self induction. So coefficient of self induction is said to be 1 Henry. आमे ताकू 1 Henry कहबे जे केतेले जेतो EMF केते प्रोड्यूस करियो 1 वोल्ट केते रेट ऑफ चेंज ऑफ करंट रे 1 एम्पियर पर सेकंड. आउ कोन कर परिया इफ 1 वेबर ऑफ मैग्नेटिक फ्लक्स चेंजेस for kete 1 ampere of current, so that is also called 1 Henry. So this is the SI unit of coefficient of self induction. Clear? Next L ra mein dimensional unit बात. Write down first. So L equal to E. If rate of change of current is 1 unit, L equal to, go to definition. 1 Henry का हमें definition दो. 1, the coefficient of self inductance of a coil is said to be 1 Henry if 1 volt of EMF is produced by changing the rate of change of current 1 ampere per second. Okay. Next. So CGS unit कौन होगा? CGS unit. So 1 electromagnetic unit is equal to only 1 EMU of potential difference or EMF it लिखा और EMF लिखा divided by 1 EMU of electromagnetic unit of ampere per second by current by time. So that is called 1 EMU. TJC. So तार dimension केते बात करते देखो. L is equal to केते आसला E by di by dt. Clear? So एटा बहुत सारा परीक्षा एग्जाम में पचार छी और dimension केते यूनिट जान लो 1 Henry. So 1 Henry रो दीटा डेफिनेशन. वेबर by एम्पियर हे करियो और कोटा हे करियो वोल्ट by एम्पियर सेकंड और वोल्ट इनटू सेकंड डिवाइड बाय एम्पियर. ओके. तो ताइन जो EMF रो केते EMF तुम बात करतो पोटेंशियल डिफरेंस V इक्वल केते W by Q नॉट. तो W रो केते M1 L2 T-2 डिवाइड बाय Q रो 80. So M1 L2 T-3 A-1 एटा दिखारो पोटेंशियल रो यूनिट डायमेंशन M1 L2 T-3 A-1 डिवाइड बाय करंट रो एम्पियर A इनटू अगर टाइम रो ग्रुप पडले एटा इनटू T बदले टाइम रो डायमेंशन सो केते देखा आको करी हमें सॉल्यूशन करिया M1 L रो केते L रो 2 L2 T रो -2 A रो -2. So this is the dimensions of L. Unit कोन बोला वेबर डिवाइड बाय एम्पियर आगोटे वोल्ट सेकंड डिवाइड बाय एम्पियर और वोल्ट बाय एम्पियर सेकंड. So this is the unit coefficient of self induction. आपको कोन पे L रो नाम होची coefficient of, remind it, coefficient of self induction. Coefficient of self induction. Okay. Self induction कौन कहला? It is the property of a coil by virtue of which it tends to oppose the strength of electric current through it by producing an induced EMF itself. So that is called self induction. Okay. So self induction कौन आले? Coefficient of self induction L. That unit Henry. So 1 Henry is equal to 1 volt into second by ampere or 1 weber by ampere. Okay. So next time म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन नेक्स्ट टाइम दिबा म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन the property of a coil the property of a second coil to produce or tends to produce EMF to produce induced EMF induced produce induced EMF by changing the current or changing the magnetic flux from the current change will magnetic flux will change by changing the current in the first coil म्यूचुअल मींस गोटाकर करंट जदी चेंज करिया सो नेक्स्ट रे जदी तार ईएमएफ इंड्यूस होची हम देखा म्यूचुअल सो देखो दीटा कॉइल गोटे बया प्राइमरी कॉइल और बया सेकेंडरी कॉइल so this is called primary coil this is called secondary coil okay r number of turns count only n1 r number of turns only n okay so change in magnetic flux let phi b okay so phi number of phi p और phi s जदि मन पर मु फर्स्ट कॉइल प्राइमरी कॉइल रो मैग्नेटिक फ्लक्स चेंज करली और इलेक्ट्रिकल चेंज करली ताले इंड्यूस्ड ईएमएफ कोड प्रोड्यूस हो सेकेंडरी कॉइल पे इंड्यूस्ड ईएमएफ प्रोड्यूस ओके जदि सेकेंडरी कॉइल रो मैग्नेटिक फ्लक्स चेंज करली ताले कार चेंज हो प्राइमरी कॉइल चेंज हो ओके बट चेंज इज सेम यदि आर चेंज करिया करंट सो इट इंड्यूस्ड ईएमएफ प्रोड्यूस हो जदि आर जदि मु चेंज करियो इट इंड्यूस्ड ईएमएफ प्रोड्यूस ओके सेम म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन जदि गोटे कॉइल रो करंट चेंज होची सो नेक्स्ट कॉइल रो कोन होची इंड्यूस्ड ईएमएफ प्रोड्यूस होची सो ताको कहबी म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन आ मैथमेटिकल एक्सप्रेशन इज सेम ओके सो लेट सिमिलरली phi b is directly proportional to I इन प्रमाण करटा लिख देली एटा कार ना चेंज इन मैग्नेटिक फ्लक्स कार प्राइमरी कॉइल रो सो मो इट लिखी प्राइमरी कॉइल सो कोटेला इज डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल टू सेकेंडरी कॉइल okay so in one word I can write phi b is directly proportional same current production होची so phi b is equal to so से देखो L थिला एटे जेतु म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन अछि तो एटे m हो m into I So number of turns of the coil, let N1 is equal to N2, N1 you can write, let N1 is equal to N2 is equal to N2. Hela nalchi primary coil N1, secondary coil N1, so N1 is equal to N2 is equal to finally N, so N phi by IB is equal to Mi. Okay, so M is the proportionality constant, M is the proportionality constant, called coefficient of mutual induction, called coefficient of mutual induction. Okay, primary coil रा जदि मु करंट चेंज कली ताले कोटे प्रोडक्शन होची EMF का प्रोडक्शन होची secondary. Okay, so that is called mutual induction. All the properties are same. So here previous phi v is directly proportional to phi v equal to Li, then phi v equal to Mi. Mi is equal to coefficient of mutual induction. Okay, L is equal to coefficient of self induction. Clear? So M is equal to how much? Similarly, M is equal to N phi by IB divided by I. Similarly, unit be same. Unit क्या हो? Unit is weber per ampere. Okay. So this is all clear. There is a good difference अच्छी self induction और mutual induction रे. गोटे coil रा निजर जदि current change करी EMF को induce कला, so आमे तक कोया कौन self induction. But गोटे coil रा जदि current change करिया secondary coil रा जदि production होला, so secondary coil रा हमर production होला induced current और induced EMF. So आमे तक कौन कोया mutual induction. This is the difference, basic difference. Or unit same, dimension same, all are same. Okay. So M is equal to how much? N phi by B, N phi B by divided by I. But according to Faraday's law of induction, similarly, according to Faraday's law of mutual induction, so according to Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, according to Faraday's law of EMI same એટલે કે देखो ना EMF E is equal to magnitude of EMF d phi by dt. Okay, or you can write d by dt of n phi b number of terms. এটা এন্ড আছে number of terms. যদি গোটে number of terms আছে n is equal to 1 হবে তাহলে এটা আমি লিখি পারিবি. So n phi by n phi b বদল কেতে লিখি পারিবি d by dt of n phi by বদল লিখি n by. So is equal to m is a proportionality constant taken outside, so di by dt. So what we mean by di by dt? Rate of change of electric current. So di by dt is equal to rate of change of electric current. Rate of change of electric current is equal to di by dt. So कितना हुआ देखा? Similarly, m equal to I कौन लिखा? m is equal to कितना लिखा है? d divided by di by dt. Clear? So एट भी मु हेनरी रो डेफिनेशन देबी. So 1 Henry is equal to कितना लिखी देखो? 1 volt divided by 1 ampere divided by 1 second. और 1 H is equal to कितना लिखेगी 1 volt by इटा सेकंड लिख ली तो इटा कितना लिखेगी 1 ampere. क्लियर? और m is equal to E फिर L is equal to E लिखला m is equal to E कितना हुआ when di by dt rate of change of current is equal to 1 ampere by second. यदि rate of change of current 1 ampere per second होची ताहले कोएफिशिएंट ऑफ म्यूचुअल इंडक्टेंस ता केते होची इंड्यूस्ड ईएमएफ. और यदि डेफिनेशन देबी द कोएफिशिएंट ऑफ म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन इज सेड टू बी 1 हेनरी if 1 volt of induced EMF is produced by changing the rate of change of current 1 ampere per second. So that is called 1 Henry. So write the definition. 1 Henry तमे जेमती सेल्फ इंडक्शन जो लिखला तो सिमिलरली म्यूचुअल इंडक्शन the coefficient of mutual induction is said to be 1 Henry if 1 volt of EMF is induced by changing the rate of change of electric current is 1 ampere by 1 second. Previous time कौन लिखली? The coefficient of self induction लिखली. Self induction से कौन लिखले? Self induction that is L. इट कौन लिखले? M लिखली. आउ दीटा रे से. ओके सेठी निजर चेंज करथिला इटे गोटे कॉइल रे चेंज हैला आउ गोटे कॉइल रे कोन EMF प्रोड्यूस होछ. ओके सो से यूनिट is same CJC unit EMU. Similarly, dimension is same. Okay, परीक्षा रे हमर पिले पचरची the difference between self induction and mutual induction. So that is the mean. It L रहो, it रहो M. It data revealing same, dimension same. So next class we will discuss about the motional EMF associated with a conductor. We will discuss.